Yes, another word that I think about is the word Cartier, and that was an Easter egg. A lot of fans were excited during the August 13th podcast when she wore that necklace, and it turns
Yeah.
out that's an Easter egg. And you know what I learned about Easter eggs is she loves fashion, and I learned this from Sarah Chappelle, who is our fashion expert. Sarah, I want to know what types of, let's start on the Easter eggs. What types of Easter eggs have you maybe uncovered? Because she does like using fashion, accessories, bags, outfits to tell the story of the new era.
For sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Brian, for having me on. I really appreciate you reaching out. So a new to her brand that Taylor hadn't previously worn before is Cartier, a designer that she now obviously brings into the Taylor Swift cinematic universe via Elizabeth Taylor. And in the last few months, she's added a few Cartier pieces to her jewelry collection. We've seen that in the necklace and also in the watch that she wore during the New Heights podcast, where she also incidentally announced the album. One other thing that obviously kind of plays a key role in one of Travis's favorite songs is Opal, another gemstone that she's also kind of introduced into her discography to join rubies and obviously diamonds. So she's worn opal a lot over the last few years. It's always been one of her favorite stones. It kind of has a dreamy but also fiery quality to it. I recall that she wore a really affordable Melinda Maria ring in the Folklore music video as one example. So she's worn a lot of opal before this, but I think it's probably taken on a more sentimental meaning now that she has an October baby in her life. So not a surprise that that's also one of Travis's favorite songs.
And he gets a whole album on his birthday on Sunday celebrating. So happy birthday, Travis. Well, you can't have Showgirl without these elaborate, glitzy, diamond dripping type of outfits. Can you tell me when you were seeing, especially the carousel that she posted last night, those new images, what is kind of the aesthetic and the feel for how she is incorporating this album?
Yeah, the album visuals are just so rich and so textured. They're really stunning. Photographed by the same photographers as we know who did the Reputation album photo shoot, one of my favorite album photo shoots in her discography. I think one of my favorite aspects of the photo shoots is how she's created this modern idea of a showgirl while also honoring the authentic and very rich and storied showgirl history with costumes from the past. So you'll see her mix the designer, the Blondes, with the designer, Bob Mackie, two designers that very much approach outfitting the female form very differently. The Blondes costumes that she wears in the photo shoot are very structured. They're very three-dimensional. They're very architectural. There's one particular bodysuit where the neckline is kind of like dramatically carved out and it kind of sticks off of her body. Bob Mackie, by contrast, who is like the showgirl designer, his work has been worn by, Cher, Tina Turner, and now more recently, Miley Cyrus. Like all of his work very much emphasizes on like beautifully outlining the female form. He's very much about carving out the womanly figure. So it's this really interesting contrast between these two sort of modern visuals of architectural and sculptural looks with a very accentuated and sensual female form. The Bob Mackie pieces that she's worn are also like original showgirl pieces from the Vegas production Jubilee. So again, it's honoring the past while also carving out her own kind of path, which I think is very Taylor.
It's tailor-made, if you will. I love that you mentioned Bob Mackie because it makes me instantly think of Dita Von Teese, who's the queen of burlesque. She was in the Bejeweled music video. I had the unique opportunity to interview her and see her residency in Vegas in the spring. And I was asking her, how did Taylor approach you about that music video? And she said, well, she called and she was so well researched. That was something that was really striking, as she had seen all of Dita's videos. She was a huge fan. And so when Taylor goes into a new era, into new fashion, it almost seems effortless, but that's because it's so much research. And you even see that with her media tour. What have you noticed with her going on the Graham Norton Show? There are pictures of that, and also of her UK tour that we've seen her doing radio station hits.
Yeah, absolutely. I was up quite late last night, as I'm sure that you were too. It's reflected in my voice right now, trying to find some of the pieces from her UK radio tour. You can say she's in this radio tour circuit. She's really helped me out specifically by sticking to brands that she's worn a lot in the past and which my eye has kind of been trained to recognize as part of her typical Rolodex. So, for example, she wore David Coma on the Graham Norton Show, and she also happened to wear a little black dress by David Coma when she previously appeared on that talk show in 2022, which is just a great way of her, extending her style patterning, building a familiar resume for these appearances, and being able to connect the two of them together over the years while also making sure that they each distinctly stand out as their own unique appearance. But that was very helpful for me specifically.
What's interesting is these behind the scenes type of photos that we've seen, and she did dump a lot last night of all these aesthetics and pictures. I feel like that is almost a teaser towards the movie that we're going to see. I was looking, if the album is 42 minutes long and this movie's 89 minutes, I imagine we're going to see a lot of showgirl, maybe inspiration and talking. What can you tell us, at least looking at the photos and the aesthetic of what we might see in the theaters tonight or tomorrow or Sunday?
Yeah, I actually anticipate that the rest of the airtime might be filled by, a lot of it will probably be filled by her in that director's chair explaining each of the songs. I think what's really fun about this theatrical release is that it basically democratizes the fan secret session and is an opportunity for everyone to kind of take part in this living room communal energy of being able to talk about this album with the artist who wrote it, which is so cool. So I anticipate that a lot of the clips will be like kind of static of her explaining the look, which if it is, I've already identified the outfit. So thank God for that.
Of course you have. You are the fastest in the game when it comes. There was one blurry picture at a radio station that I was like, I can't even really see that dress. And you're like, I know exactly who the designer is.
Yeah, well, I've been identifying Taylor's fashion on my blog, Taylor Swift
You're
for
the
the last
expert.
14 years. So you could say I have a lot of experience doing this. Last fall, I condensed all of that expertise into a book. So I've been around the block.
No, you definitely know what you're talking about. And by the way, if you haven't read her book, it's absolutely amazing. She's a New York Times bestseller. Taylor Swift Styled on Instagram. You can follow the blog. Sarah, thank you so much for your insight.
Thanks, Brian, for having me.
Of course. And now